Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader was just asking about why the Prime Minister gave tens of millions of dollars in corporate handouts to powerful grocery chains. So the answer, of course, is that he voted to let the Prime Minister do that. Not a single penny of that money could have gone without the vote of the NDP coalition partner. But we learned something else, that this might have been due to the influence of the NDP leader's spokesman and brother, whose company is a lobbyist for Metro. Would the Prime Minister support an investigation into whether or not the NDP leader's spokesman and brother has been unduly influencing the leader of the NDP?
Yeah, Pierre.
The Right Honourable Prime...
Give it to him. Yeah, sit down, Trudeau. Sit down, buddy.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we can see very clearly that all the stories out about the lobbyists' connections with the Leader of the Opposition are actually hurting the Leader of the Opposition, which is why he's asking those questions of the NDP. But he has an opportunity right now, Mr. Speaker, to make it clear that he stands with Canadians and stands to ask the wealthiest to pay a little more by announcing now that he will support our measure on increasing the capital gains imposition on Canadians, asking the wealthiest to pay a little bit more. He has dodged that question since the budget came out. Does he support the increase on the capital gains inclusion rate?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I do support the Prime Minister paying more tax on the trust fund where he sheltered all of his money. Absolutely. He doesn't, unfortunately, support his own policies. That's why he won't put them into a budget bill. But one tax he is increasing is the carbon tax on food. He's doing it with the help of the NDP. We already have the second highest carbon tax in the entire developed world. And yet, if the NDP Liberal government is re-elected, they plan to quadruple that tax to 61 cents a litre on the farmers and truckers who bring us our food. How will Canadians afford to eat, heat, and house themselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Canadians saw that he avoided pronouncing on whether or not he supports our increase to the capital gains inclusions rate. But in regards to his deflection onto carbon pricing works. We are on track to meet our emissions for the first time in any government in Canadian history. And Canadians get more money back in their pockets thanks to the Canada Carbon Rebate. And families are already using that rebate to help pay their bills and plan their monthly budgets. Meanwhile, the Conservative leader continues to oppose every measure we put forward for both affordability and fighting climate change.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister, just like his carbon tax, is not worth the cost. The tax is already up to 17 cents a litre, higher than he promised it would go. And he plans to quadruple it further to 61 cents a litre. This after it is a proven environmental failure. Canada ranks 62nd out of 67 countries when it comes to fighting climate change. And this is precisely because what he has is a tax plan and not an environmental plan. Will he stop? Why won't he adopt our common sense plan for technology and not taxes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition wants to present an actual plan to fight climate change, we'd love to see it, but he has refused to take any measure
No,
to
don't clap. Stop clapping for him.
He even doesn't recognize that pollution has a cost, which will only keep rising if we don't fight climate change, with extreme weather events and health impacts increasingly impacting on Canadians. Indeed, the Conservative leader thinks it should be free to pollute, and that we shouldn't be giving more money to Canadians through the Canada Carbon Rebate. We will continue to have an effective plan to fight climate change that is reducing emissions and putting more money back in Canadians' pockets with the CCR.
It's not reducing emissions.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, since the Prime Minister introduced his carbon tax on the farmers who grow the food and the truckers who ship the food, it has raised the price on all who buy the food, with a record-smashing 2 million visits to food banks every single year. 50% of Canadians buying food past best before dates. 20% of them have gotten sick as a result of it. The Prime Minister promised that he was going to help the middle class and those working hard to join it. Now, the so-called middle class can't afford food and homes. Is that what he meant by help?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, 8 out of 10 Canadians, middle-income and lower-income Canadians primarily, do better with the Canada carbon rebate that lands in their bank accounts 4 times a year because of the price of pollution. But if the Leader opposite actually cared about affordability and supporting vulnerable Canadians, he'd be standing up to support our measure on dental care, which has now delivered dental care to 30,000 vulnerable seniors across this country already in just a few weeks. He would be supporting our initiatives to help families. He'd be supporting our initiatives to help with childcare.
If you wanted to help these families, just tax them
Leader
less.
of the Opposition.
Oh, we have to do this all over again with him. The Parliamentary Budget Officer produced a report. I'm going to read the title so that he can Google it right now, Mr. Speaker. It is called the Parliamentary Budget Officer's Report on the Distribution of Costs and Benefits under the Carbon Pricing Program. He can look at page 3. Where every single province that has the tax sees middle-class Canadians and 60% of families paying more in tax than they get back in benefits. Why won't he get to know the facts and axe the tax?
Well said.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As opposed to the Leader of the Opposition's campaign to simply axe the facts, we are going to continue to stand with the science, the evidence, the research, the economists who have all pointed out, including the Parliamentary Budget Officer, that the Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 families in the jurisdictions across the country in which it is, and is effective in bringing down our emissions while creating economic growth as we invest in cleaner technology and good jobs and careers for the future. We have a plan for the economy and the environment. He does not.
Calm down. Holy smokes. Can you imagine the way he talks to his kids? If this is the way he talks to adults?
I know sometimes that members don't like hearing the question or the answer, but I'm asking all members, please, the only one who is standing up to, recognized by the Speaker, has the right to stand up and to ask a question. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Okay, great.
Mr. Speaker, with his comedy routine, I was going to say that he shouldn't quit his day job, but actually, he should quit his day job. But he shouldn't go into number crunching, whatever his next job is, because he doesn't believe the economy is about numbers. And I don't blame him, because if I had his economic record, I wouldn't want to talk about numbers either. But it might help him to go to the library and quietly study just a little bit. Will he commit to reading page 3 of the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report, which demonstrates Canadians pay more than they get back in the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer and far many more experts and economists have clearly demonstrated that the money that returns to Canadians through the Canada carbon rebate 4 times a year is greater than 8 out of 10 Canadians pay every year.
If that was the case,
with the price on pollution.
why would we want to stop
Those are the simple
polluting?
facts, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to invest in Canadians. We will continue to support with affordability. We will continue to put the best balance sheet in the G7 in the service of Canadians through investments and support, unlike the cuts he's proposing.
Hear, hear. Then I have
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, researchers using data from StatsCan, according to the Prime Minister, are people trying to pick a fight. But people who insult Quebec and cause the entire francophonie to ask questions, is he not picking a fight himself and just defending his little buddy? I'd just like to remind all members to be very cautious with their use of terms in asking questions or answering.
Greg is
Let's make sure everything's parliamentary. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the member apologized and withdrew his use of the term cabron. We will continue to defend French and the Francophonie all across the world and Canada, which unfortunately the Bloc can't do because they attack Franco-Ontarians and they attack language minority communities all across the country. We will always stand up to defend French in Quebec to the tune of billions in investments, and we will be there for minority language communities all across the country, as we always have done. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the term I used and which you mentioned was far less serious than the term he used opposite, which everyone's turning a blind eye to.
Yep.
The Prime Minister always tries to pit Francophones in Quebec against those outside Quebec, but I would remind him that during the last election campaign, I raised the issue of Francophones outside Quebec, and he said this isn't the right place to be talking about that. Is that picking a fight? Is that not picking a fight? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would be delighted to be able to work with the members of the Bloc in defending French language communities all across Canada. But as you know, French may be doing better. If it's doing better in the rest of the country, that would do damage to their dream of independence. So that's why they really don't give a hoot about Francophone communities outside Quebec.
Oh.
They think Quebec is the only place where French needs protection. But we are working to protect French in Quebec, but we are doing the same all across the